Testing. Hello, everyone. So in this video, we'll be going over this week's assignment. Well, actually, not the assignment, but the lecture on how to do that assignment. So I'll be doing something similar. So I have created tables. I drew them out. This is what you had to do in assignment 6, I believe, and this is assignment 7. And you have to draw out the tables, which one is the primary key, the name of the tables up at top, and how are they connected to each other. So this one, the example I'm using right now is the Disneyland. So Disneyland tickets, who purchases them, who's the visitor, and the ticket type. And all this is combined into 3 different tables. So this is what you had to do for your previous assignment. For this assignment, you actually have to code this now, right? So you have to actually create these tables in the PHP-MyAdmin and have SQL statements, write SQL statements to create these. So this is what we're going to be doing. You're going to be doing almost something similar for your homework assignments. You're going to be creating your Sparking citation tables, and then you're going to be adding data in there. So we'll be adding data in here as well, and you'll see how that's going to work. So first thing we need to do is we're going to keep this picture in mind. Remember, this is what we're trying to accomplish at the end. So one thing you should be doing here is you should be creating this database and table in your local PHP-MyAdmin. If you create it in Chelan, that's fine. Make sure you're not overwriting someone else's table. Someone else's database or table. You're not modifying any of that. Make sure you're creating your own. And if you do it on your local, then means you have it here, and then you don't actually have to worry about overwriting someone else's. All right. So first thing, I'm going to come in here. First thing you need to do is create the database. So I'm going to create a database. Let's call this Disneyland, right? So we're working with the Disneyland tickets. So we're going to create, missed a keyword, create database called Disneyland. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create the database, and where's my go button? Remove it. Let's see. Let me see what happened to that. It's right here. Sorry. It's usually all the way up here, so I wasn't able to find it here. So I'm going to run this, and it's going to create that database for us. So if you look on the left side, you have a database called Disneyland, and that's there for you right now. So now if I come in here and start creating tables, that's actually not going to work. The reason it's not going to work, if you go into databases, you have a bunch of databases here, right? And if you create tables, start creating, create table. If you start doing that and try to run this query, it's not going to work because you don't have any database selected. First thing you need to do is you need to select the database by clicking on it. And now that database is selected. Now if you come in here, then you can create tables. Because if you create tables, it doesn't know where to put those tables. That's why you need to create the database first, select the database, and then you'll be able to add any tables inside the database. All right, so I'm going to keep bringing that picture up. So first thing we need to do is let's start with the visitor. So that's going to be the you who's visiting. Excuse me. So this is what we're going to create. We need a visitor table. Name of the table is visitor. Primary key. You can see this is the primary key right there. So remember, all this is defined by you, right? So you can actually come in here and change it if you wanted to. You created these tables in the previous assignments. So if you want a name to be a primary key, which you shouldn't, but if that's what you wanted, you could do that. You can come in here and change it, but right now I'm going to stick with visitor ID as a primary key, full name, date of birth, and email. So 4 columns and visitor table. Let's go and add that in there. So create table. And we call that visitor. And as soon as you create that table, you create that line, you actually have to define the columns, what columns goes inside the table. And I like to format it this way. You can actually keep typing it in the one line. That would be okay too. But I like to format it in different lines so when you look at it, it visually makes sense. So in here, what I'm going to do, you need to define each of the columns in here. So we have 4 columns. We have visitor ID, full name, date of birth, email. I'm going to go ahead and type all those in. So I need visitor ID. Next one is full name and date of birth and email. So now the next thing you need to define is the data type. So which data type is each one of them is going to be. So visitor ID is going to be an integer, it's going to be a number, and we're going to go ahead and leave that as int. And this is the data type for visitor ID. Remember, these are going to be numbers, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever a visitor ID is, or it could be a bunch of numbers, but it's going to be numbers. So we can leave that as integer. The next one is full name. That's going to be like a string or varchar. So if you're trying to get, excuse me, if I can type it correctly, varchar. If you do varchar 255, that goes in as a string, and there you can have 255 characters of your full name in there. And we can go and leave that as it is. And then the next thing we need is date of birth. Date of birth would be date, right? So date of birth is going to be a date data type, and email is going to be, we can leave varchar in there, and varchar would be a string, and 255 characters should be enough. And now I think the reason it's complaining is it's looking for a comma. Every single column needs to be separated by a comma. So we have that in there. Now this is where we need to define the primary key or anything that we need to define. Remember, in this table, if you look at it, this makes sense. Visitor ID would, visitor ID would be the primary key. So if you come in here, and we're going to go ahead and add primary key, just like this. So primary key, and everything else will stay the same. And last thing I'm going to do is, remember, we're not going to have the user enter the user ID. But if you sign up for like a student ID, right, you don't get to pick your student ID. They actually assign it to you. So this is what we're going to do here. It is auto increment. So we're going to do auto increment. That means anytime we add a visitor to this table, this is going to be auto generated. And that's how it should be, right? All right, so now we have the table. We have the table name, we have the primary key, we have all of the columns, and we auto increment. The next thing we can do is we can run this, and now that is in there. All right, one thing that your what do you call assignment asks for is reusable code. Reusable code. I'm sorry, I have a bad cough, so my pronunciation is not as effective. All right, so one thing they want you to do is reuse this code. So you should be able to rerun the code without any errors. So if you already have a table in there, just like we just created right here, you can see that. If I run this again, I'm going to get an error, right? So this is, they don't want that. You can keep running it if they wanted to. So reusable code would be adding create a table if that table does not exist. So if the table does not exist already, go ahead and create a new one. If it exists, just go ahead and ignore it. So if I go ahead and run it now, it ran the query, but that table already exists, so it didn't do anything. So, but I did not get any error. So all they want you to do is when you create a table, add that statement in there, right? All right, just like this one, we need to create 2 more, right? So we took care of this one, visitor table. Now we need to let's do ticket type next. Same thing for the ticket type. We need to declare the name of the table, and then we need 4 columns. In here, I'm going to come in here, I'm trying to modify the same query. So I'm going to do create table if not exist, and that was ticket type. And ticket type, the first column we had was ticket type ID. And that's going to be integer, primary key, auto increment. That's great. We got this one. And then we have ticket name, description, and price. Let's go and add that in there. And the next one is ticket name, and that's going to be varchar string. We'll go and leave that in there. The next one we have is description. So it's just description. It's up to you, however you want to define the data type. It's obviously it's not going to be a date. So description you can leave as varchar 255, but if you do that, then you're only allowing user to enter up to 255 characters. But there's also a bigger data type you can use, which is text, which is going to be unlimited amount of text. However, there is a limit, but they can enter a lot of text in there, right? We have ticket name, we have description, and the last one we need is the price. So let's go and add that in there. So let's go and add price. And if you didn't define data types before, that's okay. You can actually define your own right now. But this one looks like we have a decimal. So we can go and add that in there. Excuse me. So price is not a varchar. That is a decimal value. I'm surprised it's not auto filling this for me, the data types, but and let's go and add that in there as well. Excuse me. All right. So now we have ticket name, description, price, auto increment. We have that table and we have that reusable component in there. That's great. I'm going to run it. And that created the ticket type table for me right there. All right. And I'm going to edit the same one. And we need to do one more, right? So we need to add the purchase. So the ticket type and the visitor comes together in a purchase table. And this is where the purchase happens. And this is, we're going to create the purchase table. The name of the table is purchase. Then we need purchase ID, visitor ID, ticket type ID, purchase date. All right, so two of the things in here are coming from different tables, right? So visitor ID right here is coming from visitor table, and ticket type ID is coming from ticket type table. So what happens here is this visitor table is a foreign key because it's a primary key in a separate table. So that we need to define that in here. So visitor ID and ticket type ID is known as the foreign key. The primary key for this table is purchase ID. Okay, and this is just an extra column. But we need to define the foreign key in here. We have 4 columns, but we have 2 foreign keys, 1 primary key. Okay, so you come in here. Already forgot the name of the table. Purchase. So we're going to create a table called purchase. Come on. What is going on? All right, so purchase, then we need purchase ID. And that's going to be int, primary key, auto increment. That is okay, as we don't need to enter the primary key is going to auto increment for that table. That's great. The next one we need is a visitor ID. Visitor ID. I think that's how we defined it there. And the visitor ID, I remember it was an int. Remember all the primary keys that we have entered so far as an integer data type. The next one is ticket type. Okay, this one is lowercase. Type ticket type ID. I think that's how I typed it over there. All right, so ticket type ID, and that is also an integer. We define the primary key in the ticket type table as integer. So that's going to go in as an integer. Next thing we need is a purchase date. The last one is a purchase date. So sorry, not like this. There's no space in the middle. The data type is not decimal. That data type, since it's a date, we're going to keep it as a date, just like that. So we have purchase table, then we have purchase ID, that's a primary key, then we have visitor ID, that is the foreign key coming from the visitor table, and then we have ticket type ID, which is coming from the ticket type table. So now this right here, if I go to create this right now, it's going to create the third table, and they're not going to be linked together. To link them together, we need to define the foreign key in here. So we need to do location, something like this. All right. So now we need to define we need to tell the the database that the visitor ID is not a new column we're creating. That column is coming from a different table, and that becomes a foreign key. And we need to tell tell it like this. So we're going to define a foreign key for this table, and the visitor ID, visitor visitor ID is the foreign key, and that references, well, you defined where is that foreign key is coming from. The foreign key is coming from a visitor table, and that is defined as visitor ID. So I may run into some problem because I don't know if that capital V or capital ID went in like this. It might be all lowercase. If that's the case, we'll come back in here and change it. But that's how you define it. So this visitor table has the visitor ID, and this visitor ID is this visitor ID. So we're referencing it, right? So we need to do the same thing. So I'm going to copy this one line. We need to do the same thing for ticket type ID. So I'm going to take ticket type ID right here. I'm going to copy this, paste it here. And that is actually not coming from visitor. That is coming from ticket type table. And the name of that foreign, the primary key in the ticket type is ticket type ID, just like this. All right. So columns and then references declaring foreign key. All right. So everything looks okay. I don't think I made a mistake. So just in case, I'm going to copy this. If it just erases it, I'm going to try to run it. And it looks like it went through. And now you can actually check if it went through. You can come in here. You can check the ticket type. You have these 4 columns. You have visitor. You have the purchase. Purchase has those 4 columns, but you don't know if they're connected or not. But you can look into designer, and you'll be able to see if they're connected. Looks like they are not connected for some reason. Why am I not seeing those lines? So usually when you define the foreign key that way, they are connected. But for some reason, it's not showing up in here. It might be my computer, PHP, my admin, the version I'm using. It's not coming in here. But okay, I'll look into this. I'll let you know what's going on. But maybe I don't have any data in there. That's why it's not connected. But that could be the case. Well, let's go ahead and add the data, and we'll come back and check. And if still not working, I'll look into that and I'll let you know what's going on. But we've connected it, so it should be there. Okay. So now we need to add the data. First thing we need to do is we need to write insert. Remember, make sure your database is selected, and then you'll be able to add the data. All right. So the first thing we need is an insert statement. So insert into, and we're going to be inserting it into a visitor table. And the visitor table takes in, go back in here. So visitor takes in full name, date of birth, email. Remember, visitor ID is auto increment. We do not add that in there. So we only need to pass in the data for these 3. Okay. So now we need full name. So I'm going to go ahead and add my name in there. The next thing we need is the date, date of birth. Let's go ahead and add that in there as well. And that's going to be in a format. 1980. I'm just making it up. That's the date of birth. Next thing we need is the email. So email, let's do my email. like this. All right. Excuse me. I'm going to copy this. That's just one line. We can go and add more if you wanted to. So, excuse me. Let's add one more just in case. Yeah. So I'm going to add one more in there. Oh, I missed a keyword. Insert into visitor. You gotta define what are you adding. So it's going to be full name, right? Yes. Date of birth and then email. And then the values are defined here. Sorry, I was missing this part. All right, then we need to add more values, so we're just going to add more values. And let's go and do John Smith something. Date of birth. For your case, for your homework, you can make up this data. I'm making this up as I'm going, so you can make up any data that you want. Copy this. Yeah, that should be okay. I'm gonna run this. And now, if you come and look at the visitor table, you have that data in there already. Now, you can go back to SQL, and we're gonna delete this and add more data. Actually, let's go and type it in. So we're going to add more data, insert into, and we're going to be adding it to ticket type. So ticket type takes in ticket name, description, and then price, right? And then we define the values. Just got to make sure ticket name, description, price, ticket name, description, price. Remember, this is auto increment. We don't need to add it. The SQL will auto increment for us. It's a primary key. All right, so now the ticket name, let's do day pass. And then next is description, single day pass. And then we need to define price. Let's do probably $100 and some now. And this is price is the decimal value, I think, or integer value. Let's look at that. Yeah, price is a decimal value, so we can go and define a decimal value, something like this. All right. Let's add one more. So let's do, first thing we need is a ticket name. So let's do 2-day pass. Next thing is description. Access to Disneyland for 2 days. And let's do like 190. Copy this and then come in here, ticket type. You have a day 2 pass. I'm sorry, day pass and 2-day pass. And the ticket ID is auto increment, so it's incrementing already. So if you go to purchase, nobody has purchased it yet. So we can actually make up that data as well. So we're going to clear that. And what we're going to do is insert into purchase table. And what are we entering? We're entering visitor ID. We're entering ticket type ID. And we're doing purchase date. I think that's the columns, right? So we have visitor ID, visitor ID, ticket type ID, and purchase date. And the purchase ID is auto increment. We don't need to add that in there. And we do values, and then we enter make up some data. So visitor ID, we have 1 in there, and then ticket type ID, we have 1 in there. Let's go get it from there, and let's add the date. So let's add today's date, and it's going to be the same format. Let's do 25. I don't know if it's going to let me add it in there, but we'll see. And let's add one more. So let's do 2, 2, 2026. Okay. So purchase table, define what are you trying to add, and define the values afterwards. So 1 will go into visitor ID, the second one will go into ticket type ID, and that would be referenced as a foreign key in a different table and then the date when this was purchased. I'm going to run this, and it was added in there. If you go to purchase table, you have purchase ID, that's auto increment. This is what we just added. And let's go and look at the database now. Did it add it in there? No, it still didn't add it. Why did it not add the lines? I'll look that up. What's going on? It might be just my computer, but I should have added it in there. Okay. So we created the table that they wanted us to. So it's similar to this right here. The only thing we're missing is lines. That is actually not required for your assignment for today. I just wanted to show you should be able to add the lines. That these lines are added when you add the reference to the um, primary key with the foreign key. Okay. All right. So that's. Let me see if there's anything else we need to add. So then you just need to write select statements. You can do that. We already practiced on that, but that should be okay. If you need anything else, let me know. Email me. I'm always happy to help. Stop by during my office hours if you need any help. That's it for this assignment.